Okay, showtime.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here for the distinguished lecture by Professor Ben Shneiderman. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we live and work, and I'd like to pay my respect to the Bedigal people, and also pay my respects for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be here with us today. So, many people have said just now that they come all the way from neighboring universities, USIT, from UTS, even from Brisbane, just to hear, hear Ben here. And Ben is quite a household name for those of us in computer science and engineering. I'm sure some of us have read either his articles or one of his books. In fact, I'm very thrilled when Aaron told me that, oh, there you go, Aaron's here, that Ben's coming to Sydney and would like to give a lecture. So thanks to Aaron for, giving us this opportunity to host Ben. Actually, I always refer to his textbook, Human-Centered AI, as well in our current course, Ethics. So I hope there are some ethics students here as well. There you go, Human-Centered AI. Thank you, Katerina, for bringing the book. My collaborator from UTS, thank you. And Ben is really not a strange name. He's a fellow of so many different academy, AAS, fellow of IEEE, ACM, and so many more. And today, I think the topic that he'll talk about is very much dear to our heart, because how many of us here who has not used Gen AI in the daily life? Okay, Gernot, you're a minority, but let us hear from Ben himself about human-centered approach to Gen AI.
Well, thank you, and here a little appreciation, some good chocolate for you. Thanks for your efforts to organize this, and thanks to Aaron for making this happen also. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
we'll share this.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here and to wave the flag of the University of Maryland and the Human-Computer Interaction Lab, which now is on its 9th director after 42 years. Sort of remarkable kind of experience, and I've had the great satisfaction of seeing the work of this group and others in human-computer interaction make such a difference around the world. It's a rather amazing story that this modest-sized group of researchers of a few hundred, few thousand, who met at the SIG Chi conference, now coming up in April in Yokohama, in end of April, and but it's changed the world from the world I knew as a young student, maybe your age, when we've now have a world where the World Wide Web provides us vast amounts of information. People have mobile devices in their pockets that allow them to be in touch with people, their family and friends, to get medical advice, to arrange business deals, and so on. It's a transformative notion, and that transformative notion gives me great satisfaction. I played some role in that, but many other people contributed to it. But this modest group of researchers developed the foundational theories and understandings based on empirical studies of users, which then infiltrated into the guidelines documents that Apple and Microsoft created about how to design user interfaces. My contribution was the notion of direct manipulation, the idea that you touch something on the screen and you drag a file to a folder or a trash can. It's pretty revolutionary in the days of Unix computing and command line interfaces. And yet we now see them as pretty obvious. I'm the origin of the idea that links are on the screen, that you click, that they're blue and you click on them. That was, you sort of take it for granted. How could it have been anywhere else? But someone had to make that happen. So there's been very, very great satisfactions. But we live in a new world now, which is what I want to talk about. And so it's about human-centered AI. So AI has swept through in a remarkable way, has had a profound influence. Some would say too much influence. Some would say too much hype. In fact, there's a special issue of the Journal of AI and Ethics, which is about the destructive effects of AI hype. There are 20 articles to read there. It's recent version of that journal. But take a look at that, the dangers there. So I'm here not to warn you about the AI hype, but to give you another way of thinking about the world. It's sort of, we again feel so immersed in the world of AI that we can't see out of it and see another way of thinking. So that's my goal today. And while I'm pleased people have celebrated the Human-Centered AI book, and I'm now trying to find my way, and these series of talks are a way to help me. So your challenges and pushback are what I need to get me to the next book that celebrates human capabilities and clarifies why you want to design tools that support human capabilities. That's the goal, supporting human capabilities, making people do things that no one has ever done before. I'm really not interested in AGI, of making a machine that does what a human does. What a modest goal that is. How low? Why would I spend? I want to have tools that give people 1,000 times the power that we ever had before. That's what microscopes and telescopes did in the past. That's what X-ray machines changed. That's what communications mattered. That's what email gives us. That's what the web gives us. Remarkable resources that are 1,000 times better than what any person could do in the past. So the shift that I'm looking for and trying to describe, it's hard for me too. It's a challenge for me to see out of the world I'm in, to think of the world of new ideas and new powers, superpowers for people. Superpowers to give people the chance to do things that no one has ever done before. Yes, I'm fully aware of the dangers that superpowers can be used for malicious and evil purposes as well. That remains a challenge to me. I have seen in the work that we've done, especially on social media, in the last 15 years, we believed that social media would give people at the margins of society a voice. And it did. That succeeded, and it still does. But I didn't anticipate how severely some of those voices would be violent, filled with misinformation, and bullying behavior. And it's a challenge to us as we develop new and powerful technologies to do our best to limit the dangers while enhancing the positives. And we do that by positive examples, by showing people what technologies can do to make their lives of their families, their businesses, their communities, and their countries better. That's a tough thing. We may have different opinions of what means better, but therein lies the discussion, but we should be working towards positive goals. So I have focused on the idea of human-centered AI. It's an imperfect term because people make vastly different interpretations of what that means. Some people think human-centered AI is to make AI machines that behave like people. No, machines that behave like people are, again, a sort of parlor trick and not a waste of time, but less interesting to me. So what I want to do is to amplify, augment, empower, and enhance people. So you'll see me saying this several times during this talk, but your goal always is to focus on individual people, their teams that they work on together, their communities, their organizations, and how you can make not just individuals, but families, teams, and others more effective. What tools that are under their control that build their self-efficacy, support their creativity, enhance their responsibility, and enable them to be socially connected. So much of the AI world is focused on the individual user, one person talking to an AI. But I'm interested in the way people are socially connected to others. So that becomes yet another agenda. Okay, so we see this already in very successful tools. My favorite simple examples are the digital cameras. Is there a way we could turn the lights a little lower here? Sort of washing out the screen. Can we get lights down a little bit, at least on the screen? Thank you. Yes, let's watch the user interface and see how well. Can't you just tell the AI to turn the lights down? No. Oh, there's a control panel. What do you know? Good. Oh, there we go. We're getting, oh, how much better, how much more comfortable. Right. So we are in control. That's the right way to think about it. We do have to learn how to be in control as well. So thank you very much, Flora and Aditya, for making that happen. So the digital camera has lots of AI built into it, okay? It sets the aperture, the focus, shutter speed, color balance, and even reduces hand jitter. Lots of great AI. But I'm in control. I mean, I take the camera, you know, and I point it where I want to. There's no AI says, you should make it a little higher, a little lower, or a little wider, a little narrower. I take the picture I want to take, and I wait for my decisive moment when the smile is there, and I take the picture. It's my picture. Then I can edit it, crop it, revise it. It's my picture. I'm responsible for it. If I've taken someone in a bad pose, you know, that would be embarrassing to them, it's my responsibility to remove that, okay? I'm responsible. If I publish something that's offensive or troubling to someone, I'm responsible. Responsibility is a big, big word for me. Hope it will be for you too. And then it's social. After you've done what you want to edit it, you can share it easily with friends and family, and it becomes a social tool. Now, many people don't think there's any AI there. In fact, when I went in an Apple store, after hearing a great talk about the digital camera, and I asked the very knowledgeable guy, I said, you know, I talk about these subjects, and I just want to clarify what parts AI plays. He said, no, we don't use AI. He was very quick to say, we don't use AI. I said, well, that's not what I understood. You know, yes, we use machine learning. I said, well, what's the difference? He says, there's no difference, but customers don't want AI. Customers don't want AI. Customers don't want AI because it takes power away from them, takes control away from them. And your goal as a designer is to use the AI in an embedded way that gives users a control panel with lots of features, but doesn't tell them what to do. Lets them take the picture how they want to take it. That's the secret, okay? Similarly, your digital navigation here, I plotted from the White House down to up to College Park in the north, and I get a recommendation, that's fine, and then I get several recommendations. I can choose to go the 26 minutes through the town, but there's lots of stoplights and traffic, but if I go around on the Beltway, it's 25 minutes, so it's a little shorter, maybe a little more gasoline, but more scenic, so I have to make these choices, but it's my choice. And if at any time I want to stray from the route, yeah, I can stray from the route. There's no restrictions. It doesn't cut off and say, you must return to, you know, it keeps you going. You're in charge. You're in control. All right? So those are the secrets, or those are the rules. Those are the design principles. And, you know, another success story, search query completion, where you start typing University of Maryland, and it gives you completion possibilities. Those are good suggestions, but you're in control. You could keep typing or select more choices. Similarly, for spelling correction and grammar, those are other, you know, good ideas and lots of ways in which you embed the AI. You don't pop up and say, hi, do you need any help? You know, that's like Clippy. Remember Clippy? Maybe it's too far back for many of you, but Clippy was this Microsoft character that popped up in the form of a paperclip and said, oh, if you start typing, Dear Cecile, it will say, oh, I see you're writing a letter. Do you want help? Well, no. And that was quickly dismissed because it was an example about how, you know, machines taking control away from the user rather than allowing them to do themselves and even make mistakes, by the way. So there's some things there, and some gentle mistakes are possible, but you do want machines to prevent you from doing bad mistakes, like not deleting a file before you saved it, you know, or something like that. Okay. Here's a more serious piece of super tool, superpower. This is the Bloomberg financial system, and it's got more than 300,000 users around the world who pay more than $20,000 a year. Serious money for serious power, because these financial traders are dealing with a great deal of information, and they know what to do with it. And they can use AI with natural language processing that takes 1.4 million documents a day in many languages and puts them in the database. So you can search by a certain company. Are you interested in Apple or Tesla? You know, or a certain industry or a certain country or a region. You get what you want. And then it shows the data in a format that's spatially stable, non-overlapped windows Notice the strategy here. And the color coding we might disagree with, or other problems that but this is a system that works very successfully. So information abundance is one of the things that I want to promote. And we know there's concerns about cognitive overload, but if we make the information presented in a spatially stable, consistent manner, then users can learn to deal with it, and they'll be able to deal with more information. If we present the information in visualizations, there aren't too many here, but there are graphs and tables and so on, maps sometimes. When you present information in a well-designed way, you reduce the cognitive load. It's sort of well-understood human factors principle. So I'm a great fan of visualization, as you may know as well. And this is the kind of super tool I think we want to build. Control rooms are like this, for transportation, for airlines, air traffic control. I had the pleasure to work on air traffic control a long time ago for IBM and help build that system. But other kind of visual environments where there's a great deal of information and expertise to use it. So yes, novices take a while to learn these tools. Not so much the tools or the language, but how to arrange the information. When you have so much information that guides a stock trader as to what they're to do, you've got a lot to deal with. So you may know more about those, but those are the examples I want to see. So what other kind of super tools are there? All right. I'm very influenced. Sheila Carpendale, some of you may know, originally University of Calgary, now in Vancouver at Simon Fraser University. It's got a great paper with some wonderful colleagues about superpowers. 25,000 superpowers cataloged in a wiki from sci-fi literature. But the catalog of 25,000 kinds of superpowers, which then the paper that they did catalogs these into categories that are pretty interesting. I find that a real inspiration for me and what I'm looking to do. Okay, so you may find that one helpful too. Sheila Carpendale. Okay, so, there's a lot to say. I can't get it across here, but, have I said amplify, augment, enhance, and empower? Yes. Okay, so that one, I hope pedagogically, I'm repeating it here, so I hope you'll remember that one. But there are a couple more. An old phrase that I've used for many years, comprehensible, controllable, and predictable. I've said humans in control, increasing the level of automation, but ensuring human control. If it's not comprehensible, you're not going to use it. Predictable is a tough one. Predictable comes sometimes easily, like in the digital navigation, it predicts the route. It shows you the route you're going to take in the future. And robotic systems, which show what the robot will do in the next minutes or seconds, whatever the relevant, those are ones that people will use more successfully. If they don't know what it's going to do, you'll see them physically. They'll back away from the screen because they're scared. They are no longer responsible. Yes?
Does predictable include deterministic?
There's, let's say, different forms of predictability. If it's deterministic and simplistic enough that you know what it's going to do, easy. The harder thing is when a hurricane is not entirely predictable, but you can show the expected path of the hurricane, the cone shape of its path, so you get some idea of what's going to happen, and you get probabilistic estimates. So not necessarily deterministic, could be stochastic, and sometimes we don't really know, and that's where problems happen. So systems which are not predictable, where I don't have a cone or some way of knowing, if I had a air traffic control system where I couldn't predict where the planes were going to be in 3 minutes or what altitude they'd be at, I wouldn't use that, right? I wouldn't have air aviation. So predictability, especially in consequential and life-critical applications, military, medical, transportation, is really important to get as best you can. And if it strays from that predictability, you want to know right away. Okay, if you're the pilot of the plane and your fuel consumption drops dramatically from what you expected, you want to be alerted to that. So alerts are another problem, another aspect. I don't talk about it here, but putting alerts, which are a form of recommendations, is a good idea, but there's a danger of excessive alerts. So physicians are sometimes get over 100 alerts a day, which leads to problems. So you have to manage that. Yes, oh, I'll take questions.
Perhaps you're coming to it anyway, but when you talk about predictable, and you mentioned things like the weather,
Speak up.
where does the idea of helping people see the system's prediction of the reliability of whatever it's doing? I mean,
The system's estimate of how reliable it's...
and communicating that to the
you need
user.
to do that.
Is that
Uncertainty
coming
is
up?
a central issue in, again, consequential applications. So yeah, these are, I don't have full answers. They're very domain-specific dependencies. They depend on how harmful the results could be and what degree of control the user has over what's going to happen. If you can't stop it anyway, then you've got trouble. So you want to be in situations where you have control. So that's why self-driving cars are a problem, because the takeover is too quick for most actions to happen. So you may want to force the cars to slow down in order to make them predictable and controllable. Get it? Okay, I mean, there's a lot more to say. You want to take, I'll give you one more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The one thing is the communication of that
Mm-hmm.
is another challenge.
Absolutely. There's a large literature about visualization of uncertainty by color, by shading, by shadows, all kinds of things. Predictability about weather is especially well studied. Short-term predictions are more reliable, long-term predictions less reliable. So you want to see that. Actually, on the weather app on your phone, that would be an improvement I would like to see. Because the 3-day weather predictions are usually pretty good, most places, although, no, yeah, I know. You can get the rain shower even when it doesn't, yeah. In some places, it's more predictable than others. Under certain conditions, it's more predictable. And you'd like to see that and like to alert people that the 4 to 10-day predictions are really not very stable. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of ways this influences your thinking. When I have in a car, when I'm driving, I would like to see, it's sort of a form of predictability, of the chances of an accident at the next intersection. How many people have died at each intersection I'm driving through? Or how many accidents have there been? And, it would be nice to know where the dangers are, what times of day, and how I can learn to drive more carefully if I had better feedback to know when things are danger, when things are in danger. Okay, there's a couple more. I've mentioned these. Relationships among people and social connectedness, and the idea often left out of AI systems is the support of human empathy, trust, and kindness. Truth too, of course. But these are ways people relate to each other. So to me, there's no idea of trusting a machine. Machines can be reliable. They can be safe, but only people have trust in other people. Trust is a complex issue based on past history and future expectations, and you build trust with people, but not with machines. So that's another principle for me. Okay, I should go back to, I skipped over the third one. I've said this before, self-efficacy is important, that people want to feel in control of their world. They want to feel effective. I can bring the lighting down in the room. When I walk into a room, I didn't know how I could bring the lighting down. That's one thing you want to see. I want environments where I know what's going to happen. I'm fussy about this. So even in my own home, there's about 25 light switches in our apartment, and I've put up little labels of where they go, because sometimes I don't remember which ones is the chandelier and which ones is the bookcase. And so there's little labels on all my things. So you want people to understand what's going to happen when they throw a switch, not to play with it and turn it on and off and see what happens. You want to eliminate those kind of, or reduce them, let's say. Creativity. People are very creative, and you want to support that. You want to enable them. If you've amplified, augmented, enhanced, and empowered them, then they can be creative. They can try things that no one ever thought of. Famously, the pilot Sullenberg, who landed his plane in the Hudson River in New York City, no one ever thought of doing that before. But he had been trained as a glider pilot and a glider teacher, and he was able to bring his plane down. Every one of the 88 passengers survived. It's one of those remarkable miracles. Miracle, but brought about by his creative capacity to know what to do and to use the plane in a way that no one had ever thought of, because both engines had been knocked out by bird strikes. And responsibility is a bigger one, still forming my way around it, but you want to show people the predictability, the impact of what they're going to do, and they should know that they are responsible. You know, this is an issue that I read AI papers and I search for the word responsibility. I search for the word design also to see if they've understood that it's not about building an AI, it's designing a tool. All right, if you come back to those words, and Cecile had a lunchtime discussion about whether the words matter. And I understand it's hard to get people to change their words, but I think the words matter. Okay, so it shapes your thinking, and if you open your mind and change your language, you change your behavior eventually. You know, I think that's true. It's hard to prove that one. I can't run a neatly controlled experiment over that. Okay, so let's just get on and again, briefly, just to drop a few of these, and there's a lots more, but some of the design guidelines, tools with control panels. So digital cameras, I've already told you about that one. Clear sequences of action. Amazon Checkout shows you 4 stages across the top of the screen, and you walk your way through those 4 stages. You know what's going to happen. You can go back, you can change it, you can go forward, and you're a greater sense of control. So that one works. And by the way, have you noticed that Amazon does not have an agent, does not have a customer service agent? Because the interface is so good. I have yet to find a customer service agent that really worked for me. Anybody have good ones that they like? I don't know. I don't find the chat dialogue with agents. My bank is awful, the airline is awful, and many of them pull away from it. And you can do that effectively, successfully, like Amazon has done. There's a lot of user testing. I've been there, I've talked to them. They have a long history of good user testing, A/B testing, and they design interfaces that are so good, agents are an impediment. All right? Prevent errors. This is one of the 8 golden rules in my old list, some of you may know, but that's kind of an obvious thing that you want to do. So in the old days, you used to type for, if you're doing airline reservation, MMDDYY, full of errors, and then you have to design 27 error messages to respond to that and check for each of those. But if you show a calendar, one of our early contributions in a scheduling tool, and you allow people to click on Thursday, or today, Monday, March 24th, there's no errors. You don't have to write the error code, and it works pretty straightforward. It's another version of direct manipulation. You click on the calendar. So you see that it's a Monday, and you see that it's the 24th. Okay, informative feedback. Every time you do something, you get something back, and then you can decide on your next step. So when you do a search query, you get 10 choices on a screen, and you get some other guidance here and there, and it's pretty well tuned, so it works pretty reliably. And that's, another important idea, that every time you take an action, you get some feedback about the status that's happening. There's a few more. I've mentioned abundant information, Bloomberg, predictive displays, I mentioned those as well, and suggestions for improvement. So you can make those kind of recommendations in a lightweight way. The error correction just has a little red line under the word. It doesn't shout and pop up and say, oh, you may have made a mistake. Would you like to change? You just give them a little feedback. All right, so those are some of the ones that, there's a longer list of them. Some of you may know the 8 golden rules that I wrote for user interface, but these relate more to AI, so I've sort of been putting those forward and trying to design examples. If you have examples of systems that do this well, please send me. I'm trying to collect examples for this new book idea. Okay, so let's go on and talk about generative AI, which is the large story these days. Well, let's see, where are we? Oof, okay. So generative AI is the big talk of the town, and I thought, I'm going to talk about, and I asked Copilot, what should I cover about human-centered AI? And it's pretty good. It's pretty impressive. This is a sample of what it does. Importance of human oversight, emphasize the need for human oversight. For me, oversight's too light a word. User control, not just oversight. To ensure they are reliable, safe, and trustworthy. Yeah, that's the phrase I've used continuously, reliable, safe, and trustworthy. As I say, the new book will say reliable and safe, that I changed trustworthiness to be in the human relationships. Okay? Highlight how human-centered design can prevent misuse and enhance user trust. Okay. I don't think we trust our machines. That's not the way to think about it, because trust, I think, only for people. And then share practical guidelines. I've done that. Designing HCI, such as incorporating visual design principles, thank you. Audit trails, another, and conducting failure reviews. These practices help ensure reliability and safety. Good. And so that's part of it. And I tried the same question, preparing for this talk, and ChatGPT said HCI principles. This is just a few of the more that it gave. Core values, focusing on AI systems to support human values, transparency, and control. The discussions of AI in the past decade have done a lot about ethics. And I'm all in favor of ethics, and we should teach ethics. But ethics are not enough. And ethics are not enough. You need design guidelines, and you need examples of success. So talk about ethics, fine, but don't make that the goal. The goal is to get a good design, and to do that, you need to have the guidelines for design. So you need to turn it into a practical set of things. And I'm going to do that in a little further here. Okay, and then there's other issues. It talks about design for... I'm pleased to see that Apple's Apple Intelligence, their version of AI, is all about empowering the user. They got it. A couple of people have told me that they got it from me. I'm sure they got it from many people. But Apple's focus is really virtuous and takes the right direction, as I mentioned with the digital camera design, that you're in control. You are empowered to do something you could not do before. 30 years ago, before all these tools, only about 10% of the population could reliably take a good picture. And now 80 or 90% can pretty reliably take a pretty good picture. That's dramatic. That's the kind of thousand-fold change I like to see, of so many people taking so many pictures. I don't know, I wish I had the data about the number of photos taken 20, 30 years ago and the number of photos taken now. Would be really, would I get my, I say a thousand-fold, but that's kind of a ballpark, it's a way of speaking about it. So that's sort of the direction there. You want to get that improved human control, retaining human agency and control. Okay, the empowerment. So Apple, also read their advertising. Their advertising in the announcement of the last iPhone, where are we, 16, 17? I lost track. But in that announcement, the word you appeared, or your, more than 100 times. You can do this. You will be able to. Your photos, everything about you. And you look at other companies selling similar products, and you'll find they sometimes say you, they sometimes say tools, but then they come out and say, the AI will do this. AI will do this. AI will make your pictures better. And that's not the message that the customers want. That's what the guy in the Apple store told me. Customers don't want AI, okay? And so Apple understands that and successfully says you. And so when you design things, use the word you, don't have AI speaking. I can help you. Do you, I can help you with it. And, get out of that. I mean, for those who knew about bank terminals, that's something I also had a role with Citibank in New York early on. The Citibank terminals were designed, instead of saying, how can I help you? No, it didn't say, how can I help you? That's not what terminals should say. And they shouldn't be. Early terminals of competitors were Tilly the Teller, Harvey Wallbanker, and other kind of comical plays that the machine was a friend, was a person, a service agent. But that gave way, and in fact, even the old term, what's an ATM? What does ATM stand for? Automated teller machine. We still have that idea. That was the early term. That was wrong. If you look online for the corporate organization, the industrial, they're called advanced transaction machines. Okay? Because automated teller gave you the wrong message. And early on, the Citibank terminals had 50% higher utilization than did the competitors in New York City. Okay, so these are the experiences in my life that lead me to to advocate a very different view. Now, I just warn you, I'm a minority position. You know, you'll find that there's a vast circle of people who talk with other language and other ideas. And I'm, you know, so be careful when you say, Ben Shneiderman says, you know, you have to stand up for it. And so we can talk about that more. Okay, policy would come to that. But, you know, just a few other tools I tried. Crayon. Ben Shneiderman speaking in Australia? No, not quite. Sydney Sunrise with Opera House? Sun's not quite in the right place. It's not quite, you know, they're not all, but, you know, it's pretty impressive stuff, okay? And I tried another one called Open Art AI. Ben Schneider said, no, not quite right. Romantic Meeting in New York, pretty good. This one on 34th Street. Somehow the Empire State Building got put in the middle of 34th Street rather than on the south corner. But, you know, it's sort of got the idea. And it's not quite the right image of the Empire State Building. It doesn't quite look like that. It doesn't have those kind of setbacks early on. And then, you know, or you get this kind of stuff. So there's pretty interesting stuff there. But I liked Open Art AI because it has a control panel. Okay? A little better than having a blank box to type in a natural language prompt. One designer told me, I asked him, I love generative AI, but I can never get it to do what I want. So yeah, you may get something interesting out of it, and then he has to do a lot of post-editing, okay? So there's a rich set of control panels here. I just show you some of the things you can control over it. I think that's good. And then Adobe Firefly also exemplifies the growing movement towards control panels. It's very oriented, much like Photoshop, to have lots of, you know, thousands of different features you can invoke, and you can get different kind of photo representations out of Adobe Firefly. And, you know, these are some more of the control panels where you can set things up to be the things you want to get. So you have a better chance of getting to what you want. I really think the generative AI is quite wonderful, but it's quite flawed. And so be careful about all those things. All right, so the risks of AI. Jeff Hinton, one of the pioneer heroes of AI, wrote this list, and he's given this talk at a few universities around the world. And he was concerned about fake images, voice, and video, that it undermines democracy. He sees massive job losses. I disagree. I see disruption, but I don't think he'll be out of a job. You can still learn programming, it's fine, and you learn computing, you'll have a job. Massive surveillance, certainly a concern. Lethal autonomous weapons, yes. Cybercrime and deliberate pandemics. That was interesting. I hadn't thought that much about AI producing deliberate pandemics, but malicious actors potentially could do that. Not obvious, though. Discrimination and bias, yes, as many have warned. So I went back to Gemini, and I said, what are the near-term risks of AI? And I wanted to see if it's similar to what Jeff Hinton said. Discrimination and bias, job displacement, privacy concerns, misinformation, deep fakes, yes, safety, security, explainability, and transparency. Over-reliance on AI, we had that in our lunch discussion. Potential misuse of AI for malicious purposes, yes. So I went to, I guess, ChatGPT. You get a pretty similar list to help me and you understand it. Here's the connections. So there's a lot of similarity, sometimes the same words, sometimes different ones, but you know, you get a similar thing. But however, what struck me, another one of the flaws of generative AI is not what it gets wrong, but what it doesn't do. Okay? Because it's trained on all this huge body of previous work. So it gives you the sort of middle ground of what's already been said by other people. And so if you want to see something new or different, don't go to generative AI. You're less likely to find it there. And I thought very quickly, I just scribbled down a few things. Copyright infringement, no mention of that. But as you know, that's a big issue. People are getting more angry. The New York Times has filed suit, joined by many others. And inequality or concentration of power, yeah, that's a real problem. You want decision-making to be, broadly shared for such high-level policy issues. Destruction of democracy. Well, Jeff Hinton had mentioned that before, and some of these things relate to it as well, and mental health problems, etc. There's more that you could think of. But just remember that you're going to get, if you use these text-based things, you're going to get the average of what people have been talking about, the most popular ideas, not the novel or dangerous ones. Okay? So I'm going to, let's see, I'll just say briefly about this. So what can we do about this? So how do we arrange for the governance of human-centered AI? So this is up, well, there's going to be several layers. I think I have a pointer. Yeah. So there are things that you as a software engineer or programmer can do that are in here. We'll take a look at there's 5 there. And then there are things, if you're the manager of an organization, there are things you can do to make a culture of safety, safer and organizational design. Then there are things that industry leaders can do. This may be more of the business school thinking, but that's kind of thing we should get to. And then there's ways that government regulation may play a role. So I don't have time to say these more, but these 15 each get a chapter, sometimes a longer chapter in the book. So you may want to take a look if you care about these. So audit trails and analysis tools and AI incident reporting systems. There should be an open public way that individuals can report that things have gone wrong. In the US, the Food and Drug Administration runs the reporting system for drug misuses. And there are thousands a day of nurses, pharmacists, clinicians, patients reporting problems they've had taken with various medications. Sometimes it's misleading and so on. So the challenge for the people we work with at the FDA joins, it's near, a few miles away from the University of Maryland. And so we've had the chance to work with them, but they have to distill that data and find what's wrong. But the reporting of problems, yeah, that should be more common in public. Sean McGregor has done the AI incident database reporting system. You can look that up, more than 2,000 reports of things that went wrong with AI systems. So we need to understand that better for different kinds of AI systems, for different application domains. Software engineering workflows, Google, Microsoft, and so on all publish their strategies. Verification, validation, testing. This has lately converged on the new idea called red teaming. Red teaming is the collection of ideas that in HCI we've been doing for 40 years. You know, testing with users, expert reviews, and a variety of other techniques that were in the HCI. They're suddenly being rediscovered, reinvented by the AI community under the term red teaming. Bias testing to improve fairness and explainable user. So explainable user interfaces, I've now drifted away from that. In favor of predictable. So explainable user interfaces were triggered more than 10 years ago when the European GDPR requirements stipulated that users were entitled to an explanation. And there are more than 100,000 papers on explainable AI. Yet I don't see any AI systems that are explainable. They're inherently black box. Okay, Cynthia Rudin at Duke University has been the hero in pushing against this and stop explaining black box systems, make them clear box systems. And she's got a certain approach called interpretable AI, which does the job. She won the $1 million AI prize, but her work is still not widely accepted. So this is another one of the challenges of going against this huge tidal wave, tsunami of, you know, of a direction that I think needs some change. So that's a kind of tough one. To stand up against a tsunami is hard. So you want to change the way you deal with that. So I've drifted away from explainable, and rather what I want are the predictable, controllable ones, like Amazon. Amazon doesn't have explanations of what's happening. They move you along step by step, and you can, you know, if you're not sure about something, you can inquire about that or check what happened or go back and change your answers and see what the impact is. So instead of explainable, I think you get predictable and controllable.
Is interpretable a gray box?
Some would say her approach to interpretability is more like 5-line Boolean expressions. Not understandable by everyone, but certainly comprehensible to if you've had a computer science training. So yeah, you could say it's gray box if you want, but I think remember the explainable AI literature is largely about retrospective explanations. That is, you're in trouble, you're confused, and you say, please explain why I was turned down for a mortgage. But then it's too late. And rather than curing the disease of confusion, I would rather give treatment in advance to prevent the disease. All right, so if you have a clear interface, you'll see when you enter that your monthly income is $6,000, that you can't buy a $3 million home. It'll tell you right away. You know, your limit is not enough, but you've increased your salary, or maybe if you have increased stable assets, like a loan from your family, you can now buy the place. It tells you what to do. Rather than telling you what's happened, it tells you what you can do to get what you want done. These are subtle issues that I'm still and again, here's another one. If you know of any explainable AI systems that work for you, please send them to me. Please let me know. For the book, I finally found one that was close for a specific situation. Margaret Burnett, Oregon State University, her team had one that was the best example I could find. But I worked, for 2 years, I was trying to find an explainable AI system that worked. In the face of, remember, 100,000 papers. So something's going on here. And, you know, my job is to get these principles put in place in 5 or 10 years rather than 50 years. You know, it's just sometimes, you know, you need to see the right example. Okay, let's go on. There's more. This is less of the computer science world and, you know, business management, but the idea of safety culture. How do hospitals, air traffic control, and other systems build safety into the culture? And so that's a whole set of other concerns about the leadership commitment, hiring of people, training of people, et cetera, I'll be brief and go on and say, at the larger level, not now up from business to political science or government, we have to think about the ways in which industries will create the environment where external audits. So we have external audits for financial systems all around the world, okay? Where companies annually get audited by somebody outside the company. You know, the big names, Ernst & Young, KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, right? Those are the big four. And so they do that, that's their business. So we need to establish a business, and we're seeing some of that where external companies outside will do the evaluation. By the way, the red teaming as interpreted by many of the companies is red teaming. Oh yes, we have a group inside our company that does red teaming. That's not red teaming in my world. That's not an independent audit. So when you hear people saying things, you have to ask the next question. What do you mean? Who does the red teaming? You know? Anyway, okay, insurance companies, which are a mixed bag of history, but they are effective in housing, in medical care, and transportation. And they work very hard to improve safety and reliability of those systems. So they're a positive example for me, and they may play a role in, you know, in the development of self-driving cars, or I call them safe driving cars, not self-driving cars. I want safety first, and then we'll talk about self-driving. You know, you could have safer cars by AI systems. You still have a human driver, but think about how you, and there are collision avoidance systems, lane tracking, all these things really do work. And, you know, if you study, those things are really good ideas, okay? So they can be integrated in a way that keeps the user in control, except in those extreme cases. If you're driving too fast and coming up too quickly on the car in front of you, it will stop you. And anti-lock brakes are another kind of, there's all kinds of rapid performance situations, airbag deployment. There are cases where we have to give up control, but it happens usually in the short duration incidents where danger, you know, physical danger exists. So, you know, to be careful about that. I've written about that extensively. Okay, we'll just say, you know, the movement around the world towards government regulation has happened. The EU's AI Act of last year, which came into effect January of this year, is a leader for this, and many interesting things in that lengthy, difficult document. But in the US, well, I cheered Biden administration's executive order on AI, which had a lot of the things in there I wanted, including things like every government agency must appoint a chief AI officer who's responsibility for what happens, okay? And it had other things like testing. So it required government agencies, if they were going to buy a commercial AI system for their use, they had to have tested in the environment of use to demonstrate its value. And so competitive contracting would happen based on the testing in the environment of use. Nice ideas. And I wrote essentially cheering this on. And then Mr. Trump, on his first day of presidency, rescinded the Biden executive order. So we have a real setback. It's a real problem. So things are a little shaky and unclear now because of the turbulence of the US, and I expect elsewhere as well. The Europeans still are staying in good shape, and I don't know about the situation in Australia, but maybe some of you can fill me in or send me Australian reports about what ways that the government will regulate guide industry. Yeah.
How do you see the enterprises doing self-regulation? Because there's a safety and a problem.
Yeah.
underlying.
Yes, right. That's the safety culture idea, but I think, yes, organizations should do their self-regulation. But as we mentioned, in financial accounting, they're required to do an internal audit. This is the US. Every publicly traded company in the US, about 10,000 of them, is required to have an internal annual audit and an external independent audit. Imperfect, you can point to flaws in that, but I think that's kind of the right idea. So, yes, I'm happy to have companies and publicly announce their evaluation of their own systems, but then I want some independent reviewers as well. So there's a set of things like that need to be done. All right, I'm going to come to a close here, just sort of say generative AI is powerful, so learn to use it. But generative AI is flawed, so be careful. Responsibility, only humans and organizations are liable and accountable morally and legally. All right? And that the goal is to support self-efficacy, creativity, and social connectedness. And, here's a few of the things happening. I should say the European AI Act, because I heard there was some discussion this morning in the presentations. You will note that the European AI Act prohibits the use of emotion analysis in AI systems and commercial products. Yes, you can do it in research, and there are some special exemptions, but the inadequacy of emotion detection makes the made the European AI Act push back against it. One of my colleagues who's very strong into AI emotion detection wrote to request a review of that, and after some consideration, his request was rejected. So it's not whimsical or lightweight, but they understand that emotion detection, according to, I can't remember what's his name, Paul, who's the six AI principles? Paul Ekman, thank you, Paul Ekman. Those six, which were so much celebrated, or shown not to be really effective as a way. Emotion is much more complicated. Facial expressions are much richer than six. If you have any sense of what it is to be human, you know there's more than 6 ways your face changes. And you know that it differs not only across countries and cultures, but day to day, hour to hour. People are very different. People are really unpredictable in ways that you must remember. It's not so simple to say we'll detect if the person's joyous or sad or angry or whatever. Okay, just some closing thing. I sort of added some slides to blast a few things. If you haven't gotten it yet, it's about you, the user, all right? So come back to you, the user, giving users control. Did I say amplify, augment, enhance, and empower? Okay, give people superpowers. That's your job, okay? Now, I know what's a superpower? Well, we have to discuss that, but think about it that way. Your job is to enable people to do things they never could do before, build their self-efficacy, make them feel better about what the world is, that what they can do, that they have powers they didn't have before, clarify that they're responsible, and enable social connections, okay? And yeah, I mean, take a look at these, think about these, find your own way of interpreting them, be creative, you know, and put these to work. And I just close by saying the book is there, it's been out. My favorite early review was, it's one of the most important AI books in the last few years. Now, as my introduction said, I'm well known in the HCI world, but this book said it was this reviewer said it was an AI book, so I felt good about that. I was reaching the audience I wanted. And Forbes magazine, influential business magazine, said this was valuable to management who need to understand. The book won the category in the Association of American Publishers, which I don't know how many hundreds of books there were on you know, in computing and AI and information sciences, but that's my pride. And you know, take a look. The Google group, free to join. I was writing quite reliably every week until October, then I stopped, and I started last week again, so maybe once a month I'll get something together as I try to find my way to the next level. I'm still struggling to get up there, but maybe you can help me. And so you can sign up for that, and you know, my Maryland website, and we also have a website with some information, 30% discount through Oxford University Press. They've been a good publisher. The book is coming out soon in paperback edition, so that's another testimonial. And I am on my journey to find the next book, to make the next book. Thank you for your time and attention. And I'm not sure what, I know some of you have to leave, but I'm glad to stay and take questions. And oh,
From us.
oh, I get a goodie bag too. All right,
Thank you for a wonderful lecture.
All right, great.
So we actually have time for a bit of questions, and in fact, afternoon tea is served after. So, you know, we hope if people actually have time to hang around, and, you know, we can also have a follow-up chat. But does anyone have a... Okay, there you go.
Thanks for the presentation. How hopeful you are in receiving the message by big companies like Google, which they reverse its ban on using AI in weaponry.
In what?
Weaponry.
In
Weapons, surveillance.
Yes.
Yep.
Well,